The cafe smelled like roasted dreams and broken mornings. He stood in line, wearing the same wrinkled shirt he'd worn yesterday, his eyes heavy from another sleepless night. Just behind him, a woman in a navy blue coat and elegant heels stood quietly, her hair perfectly tied, her expression distant, as if her mind was somewhere far away, in a world only she could see. No one knew her, no one cared to. Until the moment her card got declined that he didn't know why he did it. Maybe it was instinct, maybe kindness, or maybe he just knew the feeling of being embarrassed in public too well. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, tapped his old debit card, and paid for her coffee. "Don't worry about it," he said, forcing a smile. She blinked, caught off guard. "You didn't have to, it's just coffee," he replied, walking away with his own cup, unaware that his small act of kindness had just touched the life of someone who could buy the entire cafe, and 10 more like it. She stood there, her heart pounding in a way she didn't expect. For years, she had built empires, signed deals worth millions, and sat in boardrooms filled with men who underestimated her. But that morning, she had forgotten her wallet in the car, her assistant was out sick, and her card, linked to a new security system, had frozen. For the first time in a long time, she felt human. And this stranger, this man in a worn-out shirt with tired eyes, had treated her with a grace no amount of money could buy. She watched him leave through the glass window, carrying his paper cup like it was a victory. Something about his tired posture and quiet dignity stayed with her long after he was gone. She wanted to thank him, but he disappeared into the crowd. 2 days later, he returned to the same cafe, this time counting coins before ordering a small black coffee. Life hadn't been easy for him. After losing his job 6 months ago, he'd been working night shifts at a loading dock just to keep the rent paid. The coffee was his only luxury, a small comfort that reminded him he was still human. As he waited, a voice came from behind him. "Still black, no sugar?" He turned, surprised. It was her, the same woman. But today she wasn't in heels. She was in jeans and a simple white sweater, her hair tied loosely, her face soft and warm. "You remembered?" he asked awkwardly. "I owe you one," she said, smiling as she handed him a cup. "Actually, I owe you a lot more than that." He laughed. "It was just coffee." She looked at him for a moment, studying the way he said it, not bitterly, not regretfully, but honestly. "You'd be surprised how rare just coffee can be," she replied. They sat by the window. She asked about his life, and he told her the truth, how he'd once been an engineer before his company shut down, how he'd been sending out resumes every week with no luck, how his dream of designing affordable housing for the poor had been crushed by bills and rejection letters. He didn't mean to open up, but something in her eyes made it easy. She listened quietly. When he finished, she said softly, "Maybe the right door hasn't opened yet. Sometimes, we get lost before we're found." They met again the next day. And the next. What started as coffee turned into long talks, laughter, and late evenings. He never asked what she did, and she never told. For him, she was just a kind stranger who didn't judge. For her, he was a reminder of everything she'd forgotten: humility, sincerity, and the beauty of ordinary struggle. But one morning, everything changed. He walked into the cafe to find cameras flashing outside. The manager whispered excitedly, "The CEO of Lennox Industries is here. The youngest female billionaire in the country." He didn't care much, until he saw her. Standing in front of the crowd, smiling confidently, dressed in the same navy coat from that first day, his stomach dropped. The woman he'd shared coffee with, was her. When their eyes met across the room, the noise disappeared. She walked toward him as everyone watched, then said softly, "You paid for my coffee when I had nothing in my hands." And that meant everything. The reporters looked confused. He stood there frozen, unable to speak. She smiled at him and continued, "People think money gives value, but kindness does. You reminded me of that." Later, when the cameras were gone, she found him outside. "I didn't tell you who I was because I didn't want it to change anything," she said. But I want to offer you something. No, not charity. A chance. He looked at her cautiously. A chance? I own a foundation that funds projects for affordable housing, she explained. We've been searching for someone who understands the problem from the ground up. You do. I want you to lead the design team. He couldn't breathe. You're serious? She nodded. Completely. That night, as he walked home under the streetlights, he couldn't stop thinking about how life turns in strange, silent ways. He had given her a $4 coffee, and she had given him his life back. Months later, they stood side by side at the ribbon cutting of their first completed project, a housing complex for low-income families. Cameras flashed again, but this time, he stood tall beside her, and when a reporter asked her how it all began, she smiled and said, with a coffee, and a man who believed kindness still mattered. The crowd clapped, but only the two of them knew the truth, that a small act of goodness on an ordinary morning had rewritten both their stories forever, because sometimes, it's not the rich who change the world. It's the tired, the kind, and the ones who still believe that helping someone, just once, can mean everything.